Welcome to the Life Science Success Podcast. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Don, and I'm a consultant in life sciences, and I help companies manage complexity and really focus in on their business operations and ways to really enhance the interactivity in their people, process, and technology for the company. And so today I'm really excited as well because we're going to focus on something that I don't feel like we touch on too much. We have a lot of companies that are focusing on cancer-related drugs and things like that. And so my guest today, Roee Hevrony, is the CFO of ImmunoBrain Checkpoint. And I'm really excited to get started with the interview here and dive a little bit deeper into ImmunoBrain and what you're working on. Welcome.
Excellent. Thank you, Don. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for being here. Would you mind just taking a little bit of time and telling the guests just a little bit about yourself, and then also what led you to the point of working with ImmunoBrain?
Sure. So I was born in the U.S., but I grew up mostly in Israel. Since the age of 6, we kind of traveled back and forth between the U.S. and Israel, um, and it kind of sparked this traveling back and forth between the two continents, between the two cultures, sparked this kind of diverse curiosity with me. So I'm a little bit all over the place in terms of my curiosities. Then in my 20s, I moved back to the US to go to college on the East Coast and worked as an investment banker in New York, and moved to the West Coast for a role as a financial controller of an engineering company in the nuclear power generation world, and then moved back to the East Coast for an MBA. So again, a little bit back and forth. And after business school, I joined the founders of ImmunoBrain back in 2015, and have been back with the team for almost 9 years now.
That's great. And I mean, did you know them before, or did you have some sort of background that led you then to kind of work with them?
Absolutely. So my father is an investor and an entrepreneur. In my teens, he already co-founded his first biotech company, which was a spin out of an academic lab. So I've been exposed to this world of basic science driven into translation, often with, many roadblocks from a very early age. So I've been knowing this world. And when I got to hear about ImmunoBrain when I was in business school, the story really fascinated me. I knew how upsetting this world of Alzheimer's diseases, and how bad of a disease it is, and it really intrigued me. And I looked at the preclinical results, which were kind of amazing, and the science behind them, and really you talked earlier about how you mostly see cancer innovation and
Right.
immune therapy. So I really understood that this is a completely new approach to neurodegeneration in general, and it really fascinated me. So looking at how others usually treat the brain, and here there's this approach of treating really the immune system without the need to even for our therapy to get into the brain, was really fascinating. Um,
Yeah. Yeah. And
yeah,
I mean, I feel like there's a lot of things that prevented us really from being able to work on these things for a long time. And now, yeah, I feel like science and everything has just more or less added, into a really positive place for science to be positioned properly, as well in terms of treating these things.
right. And then just to close the story about how I met the team. So basically, the two co-founders of the company are my father and my aunt. My aunt is his sister. She's a professor of neuroimmunology at the Weizmann Institute of Science. And they started, talking about this venture. So I really got excited, and I've been following them since. So from the very beginning.
Very nice. And so I looked on your website, and just to kind of highlight for people, I really like the overall layout of the website, because for somebody like myself that's not really scientific, it sort of breaks down exactly, how, what it is that you're working on, and sort of the focus. Was your aunt the person in the video at the very bottom? You know that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes,
Okay.
yes, yes. Yeah.
Okay.
So she's been for 20 years now. She's been kind of uncovering this relationship between the immune system and the brain with like these major publications in peer-reviewed journals. And that's how the company was started. We started with basically this kind of use method IP that talked about the use of this family of immune checkpoint antibodies to treat the major neurodegenerative diseases.
Oh, very good. Yeah, it's I mean, I really enjoy. There are a lot of websites that you go to where it's very basic. One, and so you can't extract enough out, and then in other websites, I feel like there's so much science that for somebody like me, I just sort of struggle. I have to really deep dive then into each and every paper. It's not like I can't understand. It's more or less then you have to sort of pick each piece apart, and I felt like it was properly set for a person like me to as well, approach the.
Great. So they did a good job. I'm happy.
Yeah, very good. So, in terms of your career and the diversity in your career and what you do today, do you feel like the things that you did before really help, with the organization and what it is that you're having to do today as well?
Yeah. So it's been 9 years of this journey. We started from just the three of us and the four of us, and we went from spending the first couple of years uh, kind of expanding on the initial results that we have of showing how this completely new therapy of targeting the immune system to treat the brain was proven on one mouse model, and we spent the next couple of years expanding it to seven mouse models, and really better understanding the mechanism of action of how the therapy works. And then the next step was we acquired a proprietary antibody, and then we spent the next couple of years uh, optimizing it for our mechanism of action. And then the next couple of years we spent preparing for the clinical study. And then just last April, in April of 2023, we started the clinical study. So the company has shifted a lot or transitioned from basic research to translation. So I feel like my background does suit it a lot. I'm a generalist, or kind of my curiosities are all over the place. So I do a lot of various stuff between team building and corporate stuff. I'm the only non-technical, non-PhD in the company. Um, so it's been very, very interesting, and I think that my skill set fit it.
Yeah, I feel like, I mean, every organization needs that, right? I mean, you need people that can sort of deep dive the clinical and science side of the business. But the business side oftentimes is sort of an afterthought for many companies. And so I have this diagram that has two axes, right? So kind of an x-axis and a y. And my point is that, look, you can either focus on the business aspect of things or you can focus on the science aspect of things. And if you don't focus on them both at the same time, and you're not able to sort of have the people to do both at the same time, the organization struggles in one way or the other. You certainly don't want it struggling on the science side, but on the people and business side, it's just as important as well.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. So, in terms of the responsibilities that you have today, what is your main focus? In business development as well as a CFO. What do you primarily focus on?
So a lot of what we do is has to do with introducing this entirely new concept to the world. It's So a lot of what I do is about storytelling, I think. Um, especially in Alzheimer's, which is a space that saw very little kind of changes in the way people see it. And we've seen, this amyloid hypothesis being hashed and rehashed over the last 20 years many times. Every time we try to find a different spin to make it work. We feel like this niche of the industry is really lacking acceptance to new ideas. So this is a lot of what we're doing is educating, or a lot what I need to do is educate the various stakeholders. So clinicians. So we started with clinicians and regulators. We had to bring on board to start our clinical study, which is already ongoing. Um, and next is academics, which already started to come on board to our mechanism. And the industry and investors are the last to come. So hopefully we're going to get them, as time moves on.
So, I mean, that brings me to a really good sort of question for you as well. I mean, this is coming out, during JP Morgan week. And so just really curious, as you go to JP Morgan, what are you looking to sort of do at JP Morgan, and what primarily, would you like to have happen there?
Sure. So as I mentioned, we started the clinical study in mid 2023. We expect to see, and it's a very comprehensive first in human clinical study. Um, we're looking at many, many aspects of the patients. These are already Alzheimer's disease patients. And we're looking at many, many outcomes from them, behavioral, many novel biomarkers that we developed. So we expect to have an initial data readout in mid 2024. So what we expect to accomplish in the first half of the year is to, get people excited about those news that we're expecting.
Yeah. And in addition to building that excitement, what is it that really differentiates ImmunoBrain from other companies?
Okay, so a lot. Our therapy is the only agent in development that is meant to treat neurodegeneration without entering the brain. We believe, we haven't heard of anything else that works like this, and it's a novel pathway. It's based on this, as I mentioned, as you mentioned, that lecture given by Professor Schwartz is a great example of how it's based on a completely different view of what neurodegeneration is and the immune component of it. Um, and it's the only agent in development that also affects both amyloid and tau and inflammation all at once. So there's a lot different in what we do than others.
Perfect. And as you look ahead, do you sort of see more exciting developments with the company coming as well?
Yeah. So given that the whole company is based on this novel scientific understanding of this immune component in neurodegeneration, it's basically a platform company. The, and it's based on platform uh, patent families that the use method applies to a bunch of immune checkpoint inhibitors, or the same type of mechanism applied to various brain diseases or neurodegeneration. And we have a few pipeline projects in work already. One of them is funded by the ALS Association, and we have a few others that are in development.
Very good. Yeah, I've mentioned this on other podcasts as well, where we've touched on drugs that treat Alzheimer's. So I had a family member that had dementia, and it's really sort of a sad treatment pathway for those individuals. And so you take them to the doctor, and there may be drugs that they can give them to kind of slow the things that are happening to them. But this level of confusion that comes on, and you just kind of see the, if you've ever been, lost as an adult, let's just say you don't have your telephone on you, you're not familiar with the geography, and you are lost, and you've ever had kind of that bit of anxiety hit you. That's the way that I guess I would describe, and I haven't personally felt it, but I would describe this sort of feeling. And so the importance of these drugs and these treatments is so important. And to hear that your overall, offering here is more of a platform for companies to help them develop treatments as well, is so critical in this space.
Yeah, it's really so insulting in a
Mm,
way, this disease. um, you lose who you really are, right?
hmm
It's a terrible, terrible disease. um, and with the growing lifespan, it's I mean, others have already called it the pandemic of the 21st century. And we're really encouraged because not too often you see programs that a single treatment, a single disease modifier affects such a wide range of diseases, from dementia to amyloidosis to Alzheimer's disease. So we're really encouraged by the preclinical results.
yeah. And in terms of kind of your career and focusing a little bit more on you, what is some of the greatest leadership advice that you've ever received?
Um, I guess my my father, who was the founder or the co-founder of this company, he has, in addition to biotech, which is a kind of a long investment timeline, he's super strong on being patient and on being patient and not cutting corners. So I take it after him.
Yeah, that I mean it's not a I mean I would say it's not a not an easy thing to do, right? And many of us want to see instant results or fast results, and in this I mean, especially whenever it comes to drug development. I mean, there's there are a lot of friends of mine that sort of criticize kind of the diagnostic side of things because I do a lot with diagnostics companies and I work a little bit with pharmaceutical companies, and so I have this kind of strange split in my world. And what I tell people is, but everything that I work on in the pharmaceutical side seems so far off versus the diagnostic side. I mean, in 4 or 5 years, I can have something to market in on the on the other side, on the pharmaceutical side, it could be 10 plus years, and at any one point it could kill the sort of kill things off. And so it's this idea of having long-term vision and patience is so important as leadership advice as well.
In our early days, so we started in 2015. In our early days, what the one story that really inspired me and gave us kind of a strength is the Jim Ellison story. You talked about the cancer therapies.
Mm-hmm.
So, he published his first results on CTLA4, I think in 1995 or 1996, I think. And, his story is so amazing. I mean, really, he, he had to schlep to so many investors and so many stakeholders, and similar to us, really persuade them that the tumor is not the target. It's about the immune microenvironment around the tumor. And it's I feel like, so he published its results in 96, I think, and CTLA4 was initially, I think, approved in 2011. So that's a
Mm-hmm.
15-year kind of timeline. And I feel like we are kind of the next frontier after cancer immunotherapy, the neurodegeneration immune therapy. So I feel like now that we've been 9 years into this journey, or maybe eight years since the initial results that Professor Schwartz published in Nature Medicine, um,
It's time, huh?
it'll take us more than Jim Ellison's 15 years, but hopefully not much more.
Yeah, yeah. And it does, I mean, it just takes it takes um so much support along the way. And I feel like the investment community, for a lot of reasons, that you could sort of build around it, has sort of backed away from a lot of things in our space. But at the same time, I could only hope that this winter for investments is nearing an end. And for a lot of companies, we start to see more and more acceleration. And it sounds to me like the treatments that you have with ImmunoBrain are something that need investment in as well. So
Yeah, I
there's
mean,
sorry.
neurology never really enjoyed the, the amount of the funding that went into biotech in the last few years. So I think that now is the really good time to invest in neurology.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. So there are three questions that I like to ask every guest. What inspires you?
Sure. So my a good underdog story. So I just told you the Jim Ellison, the Nobel laureate story. That is such a good story, really. I mean, so a good underdog story is really inspiring.
Yeah, and it's my wife recently finished a book, and she had said she said with this particular book, it didn't have the typical hero's journey arc, right? Um, it just kind of ended in tragedy, and it was a fictional story, and so it was one that they could have certainly embellished a little bit and made it something that was um, more creative on the back end. But unfortunately, I don't know if the writer ran out of energy or what. But a good underdog story, I feel like sort of starts with that really tragic place, and Alzheimer's, I feel like has that in a lot of different ways. People losing, just losing the memory and thought of people that are in their life, and so I think you have the making for a great underdog story in what you're working on.
Hopefully.
What concerns you?
Um, so what we've been dealing a lot in our space, we keep going back to the space, is people are kind of locked into preconceived notions of what Alzheimer really is and how to treat it,
Mm,
and that is it kind of it doesn't allow people to look at new ideas in an open-minded way and be open to it. And especially I think because in our industry there's been so many failures, it makes it even harder
mm,
to be open to new ideas in a way. um, I go back to this analogy to oncology, and in cancer there have been so many good news that it allows people in the industry, I think, to be open to new ideas. So if I have to be concerned about something, it's about people's mind not being open enough to new ideas.
mm. Yeah, I feel like I mean, certainly in oncology, there have been there has been good progress that people could show, but I feel like there have been major areas where people have kind of they run up against some scientific barrier that again they can't easily find their way through. And then the question always is, well, are you going to give up on this pathway, or does it persevere in some way? And
Yeah.
in many cases, I feel like a lot of different companies find ways to sort of help the technology persevere, and maybe some alteration of what it is that they were working on before, but it's still in one way or another sort of moves forward. And I could see that as well for this space. I mean, hopefully something is learned every single time that we don't have an Alzheimer's treatment, right? And then
You really want to hope so.
yeah, yeah.
You really want to hope so.
Last question: what excites you?
So my two kids really excite me. Yeah, they're 8 and 4 year old.
Very good. Those are good ages, and anything really exciting going on specifically with them.
So it's just exciting ages. No, nothing specifically.
Okay. All right. Very good. Well, Roee Hevrony, thank you so much for being here on the Life Science Success Podcast. I really appreciated our conversation. Thanks a lot for being a part of the journey with Alzheimer's. It's it's something to have this as a mission that you're working on as well.
Thanks so much, Don. Hopefully, we'll have good news in 2024.
Thanks a lot.